In a packed federal courtroom, the voice of Tupac Shakur echoed through the speakers, raw, emotional, and unfiltered. It wasn't a remix or tribute. It was a never-before-heard interview pulled from the vaults, buried for decades, a recording allegedly silenced by Diddy himself. But now, amid a trial that threatens to tear down his entire empire, this tape has resurfaced, and it might be the final nail in the coffin. Tupac, once dismissed as paranoid, now sounds like a prophet. The words he spoke shortly before his death paint a chilling portrait of betrayal, manipulation, and silent power moves in the music industry. At the center of it all, Sean Combs. This isn't about East Coast versus West Coast anymore. This is about a man who may have known he was being hunted and left behind a message just in case. The courtroom wasn't even in the public's imagination when Pac recorded that interview. But somehow he saw it coming. Long before Cassie testified, before Monique stood before the industry and said no more, Pac was already sounding the alarm, and no one listened, not because they didn't believe him, but because the truth he carried was too dangerous. If it had surfaced then, it would have shattered the illusion too soon. It began with a legendary interview, Tupac and Angie Martinez, 1996. 2 hours recorded, only 10 minutes ever aired. Angie claimed she withheld the rest to keep the peace, to avoid fanning the flames of the coastal rivalry. But now we know that wasn't the real reason. According to Gene Deal, Diddy's former personal bodyguard, the decision wasn't Angie's at all. It was Diddy's. Let that sink in. At the time, Diddy wasn't just a music mogul, he was a kingmaker, a shadow player with real influence. Gene says Diddy controlled Hot 97 from behind the curtain. He had the reach to kill stories, erase voices, even Tupac's. In that hidden interview, Pac wasn't ranting. He was focused, calculating. His words were warning shots dressed as commentary. "I'm like a lightning rod," he said. He was calling out New York's so-called royalty, and it was clear who he meant. He never named Diddy directly, but he didn't have to. Tupac was exposing the machine. He saw the manipulation, the insecurity masked as confidence, the empire being built not on respect but on fear and silence. When New York benefits, he represents it. When it doesn't, now he's just another rapper, Pac said. But y'all let him wear your colors. He wasn't just criticizing Diddy, he was documenting the blueprint. And that's why it had to be buried. That's why Diddy needed the tape gone. Now in this courtroom filled with sealed files, shocking testimonies, and a media circus, the truth is crawling back to the surface. And what it's revealing is a carefully crafted machine powered by NDAs, money, fear, and the strategic silencing of victims. Cassie Ventura's voice trembled on the stand, but not her words. She detailed hotel rooms draped in velvet, security cameras, and nights that blurred the line between networking and ritual. Her phone was taken, her freedom erased. She said it plainly. You weren't invited into Diddy's world. You were absorbed into it, but she wasn't the only one. Then came John Deal. The man who once guarded Diddy's gates now stood in open court, facing the man he used to protect. You weren't protecting anything, John said. You were hiding everything. He told the court Diddy ordered the Angie Martinez interview buried because Pac's words were too dangerous, too accurate, too close to exposing the empire for what it was. And then came the wild card, Monique. She wasn't listed as a witness. She wasn't expected. But when she stepped forward, the entire courtroom shifted. She didn't bring emotions, she brought evidence, receipts, timelines, private audio. She looked the jury in the eye and said, people didn't protect Diddy because they believed in him. They protected their seats at the table, and Diddy sat at the head. She named names, big ones, Tyler Perry, Oprah, executives, media figures. Not just silent, they were complicit. This trial was supposed to be about Cassie, she said. Now it's about everything that let this happen. And the judge didn't stop her. No one did. Because for that moment, the case wasn't just about one man, it was about a system that allowed him to become untouchable. And the first voice it tried to erase was Tupac's. John Deal came back to the stand. Calmer, older, weathered. He had seen everything. He reminded Diddy of something he said long ago. Tupac talks too much. One day someone's going to shut him up. The courtroom went silent. Gene wasn't being dramatic, he was being honest. He described how Diddy buried the tape, monitored everything, controlled everything. He said Pac's voice was a threat Diddy couldn't afford to let out. He told the jury Diddy didn't build his empire on talent. He built it on control, on surveillance, on secrets. He paid off those who could speak, intimidated those who dared, and destroyed those he couldn't silence. And Tupac? Pac saw through it all. He was the first to say, Diddy might be playing with something dark, and once he said that, everything changed. Gene's voice cracked just once. They didn't just want Pac gone, they wanted what he stood for gone. The courtroom sat in stunned silence. Tupac never claimed to be a hero. But maybe, just maybe, he was trying to be a warning. Tupac Shakur had a dangerous habit of telling the truth before the world was ready to hear it. He wasn't just a rapper who spoke about the streets, he studied them. Behind that iconic charisma was a sharp mind, a man who spent more time reading, observing, and connecting dots than most people ever realized. And one of the earliest patterns he uncovered led straight to Sean Diddy Combs. According to Suge Knight and others, close to Pac, it went beyond suspicion. It was alarm. Tupac noticed things that didn't add up. Why was this executive suddenly in every room? Why were so many young artists locked into suffocating contracts? And why, whenever he tried to bring it up, did people dismiss him as paranoid? He wasn't paranoid. He was paying attention. Suge would later recall that Pac once told him, "Something ain't right about Puff. I don't know what it is yet, but it's coming." Pac didn't throw around accusations carelessly. He did his homework. When whispers started circulating about producers with secret lives, about NDAs, about young dancers being controlled and silenced, Pac asked the kinds of questions that made powerful men nervous. It wasn't about someone's sexuality. He didn't care if someone was gay. What mattered to him was exploitation, the abuse of power, the manipulation of people who didn't know better, especially kids. Suji said Pac was preparing to go public, not to out anyone, but to protect future victims. Some of these dudes might be around somebody's child one day, Pac said. And if we know something, we got a duty to speak on it. But Pac never got the chance. When he started connecting the dots between Diddy, Uptown Records founder Andre Harrell, and the artists and dancers within their orbit, the alarms grew louder. He realized the music industry wasn't just smoke and mirrors, it was cement and control. And he believed Diddy was more than a player in the game, he was a gatekeeper for something bigger. This wasn't jealousy, it wasn't beef. It was a man seeing a machine for what it truly was, a silence engine, and understanding that Diddy wasn't just along for the ride, he was steering it. People called Pac crazy, accused him of stirring up drama. They didn't realize until, years later, he was the only one trying to stop what was coming. In the courtroom, anytime someone mentions Quad Studios, the tension shifts like a chill through the air. It was November 30th, 1994. Tupac entered Quad Recording Studios in Manhattan for a routine session. Within minutes, chaos erupted. Gunshots. Pac was ambushed, robbed, shot 5 times, and left bleeding on the floor. He survived, but what stayed with him wasn't the pain, it was the betrayal. From his hospital bed, he knew this wasn't random. It wasn't a mugging gone wrong. This was a setup. Someone knew he'd be there. Someone turned the lights off in that hallway. And someone wanted him silenced, not dead, at least not yet. In Pac's eyes, all roads led back to Bad Boy. It wasn't just a theory. It was the silence afterward, the way Biggie and Diddy, who were in the same building, acted like they didn't know a thing. No visit, no phone call, just cold distance. Then Diddy dropped, "Who shot ya?" The timing was suspicious, the lyrics even colder. Though they claimed it was recorded before the shooting, Pac wasn't buying it. He heard a warning in that song, "Stay quiet or next time you won't get back up." Years later, Diddy would smirk his way through interviews about that night. He dodged and deflected, saying he had no idea what really happened. But others say he knew more than he ever let on. Jean Deal testified there were murmurs inside Bad Boy right after the shooting. Some people laughed, others looked shaken, but no one was surprised. Not long after, Pac went to jail, and while he was locked away, the industry shifted. Bad Boy rose. Death Row started to stumble. and Diddy's influence exploded. Pac once said that night at Quad taught him everything, the rules, the snakes, the real danger. He never walked into another room without watching every door, because after that he understood. The true threat doesn't come from your enemies. It comes from the people you used to call family. And in that moment, Diddy stopped being a rival and became a suspect. What made Diddy so furious was the one thing he couldn't buy: authenticity. Tupac had it. You can't buy charisma. You can't fake spirit. Pac had the streets, the people, the love. Women adored him. Men respected and feared him. When he entered a room, he didn't just arrive, he took over. Diddy hated that. John Deal called it obsession. He watched Pac constantly, from the clothes he wore to the way he talked to women. It started as admiration and turned into imitation. Pac wore Versace. Suddenly Diddy did too. Pac spoke about loyalty, black pride, and social struggle. Then, Puff started posting fake deep quotes as if he was on the same journey. But everyone knew it was performance. One Grammy night, Diddy even accepted an award and quoted Pac's speech word for word. It wasn't homage. It was theft in plain sight. And then there was Kim Porter. Pac and Kim had history. She respected him. Some say she admired his fire, his honesty, and Diddy noticed. Rumors suggest things turned sour between Diddy and Kim after she brought up Pac too many times. Was it jealousy? Maybe. But it wasn't about love, it was about control. Pac joked once, "That man wants to be me so bad he'll do anything, even hurt me." And that's what fans now wonder. Was it deeper than just rivalry? As testimonies pile up portraying Diddy as more than manipulative, as strategic, obsessive, calculating. Tupac's old words start to sound like prophecies. "Diddy doesn't just want fame," Pac once said. "He wants immortality, and he'll bury anyone to get it." Now as the courtroom fills with evidence, transcripts, and voices finally breaking years of silence, one truth becomes clear. Tupac wasn't paranoid. He just saw the monster first, and the part that haunts everyone most isn't what was said. It's what wasn't. The Angie Martinez interview still lingers like a ghost. Everyone knows it happened. Everyone knows it was explosive, but almost no one has heard it. And maybe, just maybe, that's why everything changed. Only 10 minutes of Tupac's explosive 2-hour interview with Angie Martinez were ever released to the public. And now, as courtroom pressure tightens around Sean Diddy Combs, we're beginning to understand why. Angie, even years later, spoke with visible discomfort about that interview, saying airing the full tape could have started a war. But the story never quite made sense. Why would a journalist risk her safety, fly solo into dangerous territory, land the biggest interview of her career, and then bury it? Because according to insiders like John Deal, it wasn't really her decision. The man who shut it down was Diddy himself. He didn't own Hot 97, but he didn't need to. He owned the fear. And when he made the call to stop the interview from airing, they obeyed. Angie admitted she was terrified someone would die if it aired, but what exactly was she so afraid of? Insiders claim that on the tape, Tupac didn't just vent about East versus West or personal grudges. He named names. He called out a system. He accused Diddy of engineering a culture of silence, of playing chess with people's lives while everyone else was just rapping. He said the beefs weren't always real. Some were staged, some orchestrated, and some used to cover darker truths. Tupac described Diddy not as an artist or even a mogul, but as a politician, more cult leader than entrepreneur. And the most chilling line, according to those who've heard it, he doesn't just want you to follow him, he wants to own your voice. Suddenly, the decision to bury the interview wasn't just about industry politics. It was about self-preservation. Because if that tape had aired, the conversation wouldn't have stayed in hip-hop. It would have exposed something institutional. Now with the courtroom cracking open Diddy's empire, questions about that lost interview are resurfacing. Where is the full tape? Who still has a copy? What else did Tupac try to warn us about? Before it was too late? Because when the full truth comes out, it won't just shake the music industry, it could burn it to the ground. Tupac was never just an artist. He was a visionary. He didn't just speak truth to power, he studied it. And before his death, He started talking about something much bigger than record labels or rap rivalries. He began connecting dots others didn't even see, how the same corporations that owned the record labels also owned private prisons, and how the music being pushed wasn't just entertainment, it was bait. "Follow this life," he warned, "and you follow it right into a cage." He spoke about how positive, uplifting lyrics were always underfunded, while destructive content got the big push. "When I rap about killing my brother or selling drugs to my people, they give me a budget. But try rapping about unity, and the money disappears." Fast forward to Diddy's ongoing trial, and those so-called conspiracies are starting to sound a lot like facts. Prosecutors are uncovering more than NDAs and scandal. They're exposing what looks like a blueprint, a pipeline of parties, contracts, silence, and manipulation. It wasn't just mess. It was machinery. The machinery of control, a way to decide who gets to speak, who stays silent, and who vanishes. Will Smith's testimony added to the gravity when he said he didn't feel like a guest in Diddy's world. He felt like a prisoner. Monique hinted that Diddy wasn't protecting himself, but people even higher up, executives, media powerhouses, and politicians, people who never get their hands dirty but always cash the checks. Tupac tried to tell us that Diddy was never the top of the pyramid. He was just the gatekeeper. The real architects were the ones you never saw. "When you trace the money," Pac allegedly said, "it doesn't end at Bad Boy. It ends at the boardroom." Pac believed that every time a young black man rapped about killing, about dealing, about destruction, someone far away profited. He asked, "Who benefits from this chaos?" The answer was simple: not us. And now, with sealed documents leaking, testimony piling up, and once untouchable figures being named, you can feel it. That hidden hand Tupac tried to expose is finally being dragged into the light. His warnings, once labeled paranoia, are starting to look like prophecy. He didn't just understand the game, he saw the board. And now the world is finally catching up. By the third week of the trial, everything had shifted. It wasn't just about Cassie anymore. It wasn't just about the parties, the NDAs, the hush money. A new question started to echo through the courthouse, through social media, through every barbershop and blog. Did Diddy have something to do with Tupac's murder? For years it was dismissed as conspiracy. But now, with each testimony, each unearthed video and leaked audio, the pieces are forming a pattern, one of control, fear, and silence. At the center of it is Diddy. Cassie described a man who didn't just seek loyalty. He demanded obedience. Monique painted the picture of a system built to elevate him and crush everyone else. John Deal described obsession. And Will Smith testified that Diddy didn't just manipulate careers, he manipulated reality. Through blackmail, surveillance, and psychological warfare, he didn't invite people to his world. He trapped them in it. Then came the tapes. Not just one, but multiple. Video, audio, fragments of a puzzle that seemed to hint at something even darker than the public imagined. Not just scandal, not just shame, but murder. Prosecutors haven't yet tied Diddy directly to Tupac's murder, but they've done something almost as powerful. They've made it plausible. They've forced the world to re-examine the night of September 7th, 1996. Tupac had already said he was being followed. He rapped about betrayal. He feared the industry more than the streets. When those bullets hit him in Las Vegas, he was already looking over his shoulder. The theory now? Tupac wasn't just a victim of gang violence. He was the first casualty in a war of silence. A warning to anyone who got too curious, too vocal, too close to the truth. For years, people said Tupac was paranoid, but the courtroom doesn't think so anymore. Because the people who dismissed him are now testifying, and the people who feared him, they're under investigation. His murder may remain officially unsolved. But this trial has blown the door off the hinges. And the question hanging in the air isn't if Diddy was involved. The real question is, how deep does it go?